Hey y'all, hey, this is another episode of the Restored Talks. This is actually my first interview, and I'm interviewing no other than my father, my dad. So, hey dad.
Hey, Cher, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad that we could, my first interview will be you.
All right.
All
I'll
right,
try to do my best.
you're gonna do your best. So, just for anyone who's never caught the Restored Talks, so the goal is to assist individuals, families, and communities to just grow and really to become better than you are right now. So in the show, we like to highlight when I'm talking or when we're talking with guests, tools and strategies that would help you progress further in your life journey. So we're going to get to some questions with my dad, and he has a lot to offer audience members, and I think that our story could shine a light on one big thing called forgiveness. Um, and so, yes. So the first question, Dad, you ready? Is tell the audience a little bit about yourself, about what led you from West Virginia to Jersey, West Virginia to North New Jersey.
Well, as you can see, being from West Virginia, I am from the country. I was literally born and raised in a coal camp, East Gulf, West Virginia, where it really was one road in and one road out. I was raised there until I started I think it was maybe the third or fourth grade, in which we moved to a larger city, which was about 25,000 people, and named Beckley. And I stayed in Beckley until I graduated from high school and went on to college. When I was in Beckley, I started, the grade school that I started was a segregated school, and I was there until I was to the fifth grade when we were moved into an integrated school. And that's where I started to learn how to, well, not learn, where I started to play organized sports. And when I left there, when I was in the eighth grade, a friend of mine, Rudy Coleman, who's a very good friend of mine now still, we, for some reason, found ourselves being enrolled in the white junior high school, and most of the other kids went to, there was a black school, high school, Stratton. And even today, I guess nowadays we talk about, and we often wonder, well, how did we end up going there? Especially, and everything went, smoothly, there was no problems or anything. So anyway, we stayed there for a year, and that's the way that was set up. The junior high was set up by itself. The high school, Beckley High School, was just from the 10th grade to the 12th grade. So we left junior high, went there, and we started playing sports at the junior high, and we continued in the high school. And actually, as my memory recalls, we were the first Black athletes at that school. Now, we were the second set of Blacks to integrate the school. I think the year before us, there was two young ladies. And then when we came in, we started to play in sports. And we played all the sports. Well, not between us. We played football, basketball, track, and I think Rudy also played baseball. One of the other things that happened during that whole period was the fact that we also became two of the first Black captains of the teams. And the experience, it didn't really dawn on me then until I left, and later on in life started to think about the racial climate in the country. Because when I left there, I went on a football scholarship to Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina, which was a historically Black college. And as I said, when I got down there, that was a little different feeling, you know. So I guess I really did know what was going on in the country, but I just didn't feel it that way in Beckley. But anyway, when I was at college and Benedict, I played football for 2 years, and then I left there because I went there obviously because I went on a scholarship. But what I wanted to do and what I learned and really liked in high school was Spanish. And the reason that was because the Spanish teacher that we had, his name was Van Paulson. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, just about everybody in his class either majored or minored in Spanish when they went to school. And that's because he was just that good. He made you feel comfortable and you were able to learn. In addition to the fact that with Rudy and myself, when we used to walk back home from practice and walk to school, we would also converse in Spanish. So that helped us. So we went there, but at Benedict, like I said, the second year I played 2 years, and I left there my third year, and I left basically because, well, there are two reasons, but the main reason was because they did not have a Spanish program major. And the other reason was the fact that they were cutting out football. So we left there and, well, I left there and went to West Virginia State College, which was another historically Black college. Now, I was there for a year, and the reason I left there was because, pardon?
Were you when you went to West Virginia State, was the major that you wanted there?
Yes, I was majoring in Spanish, yes.
Okay, so now you're going to take us from being at West Virginia State and what happened there, and then how'd you get to Jersey?
Right, okay. Now, when I was at West Virginia State, the reason that I left there was because I had received a letter from the draft, and this was during the Vietnam years. So I had to go back home and go to the draft board and have a physical exam. When I had the physical exam, they told me that there were traces of urine in my traces of sugar in my urine. So however, I was not a diabetic. They said, but if you wanted to continue to go into the service, you could go to a private doctor and go that route. But I obviously wasn't interested in that. So,
so thank you.
Yeah. So what happened is, as another friend of mine who had received that, Braxton Tola, who was a good friend of mine, and we both had family in Cleveland. So that summer we went on to Cleveland and we started to work there. So we worked there that whole summer. And Cleveland, I guess, you know, unless you're born there, it was like you were isolated. It seemed like very, very boring. And I guess unless you grew up there and you knew people there, it wasn't a very fun place. So anyway, toward the end of the summer, we left and came to Jersey. And the reason I came to Jersey is because I used to stay with a cousin in Jersey City during the summer and work. And I enjoyed it, and I liked Jersey. But when we left, we didn't have any job prospects or any place to live. We got on the bus and we came. And when we got here, we looked in the local newspaper and found a place to stay that same day. So we went there, stayed there, and then just so happens the next day, if I'm not mistaken, we ran into a guy on the corner who was from Beckley, and he happened to be a foreman at this company down the street. So we were able to get jobs. So
you're in Jersey City at this point, or you're in Newark at this point?
This was in Newark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's how we were able to come and get to Jersey. Now, I guess our plan was, if we wasn't able to find a place to stay or find a job, because we did have money, you know, in our pockets, we could have went back to Cleveland, although we didn't really want to. it just so turns out it worked out good. I mean, later on, we got an apartment and we moved from that place. And I think within that year, Braxton had went back to college to finish, and I stayed working.
And
And
he went back to,
eventually,
he
pardon,
went back where?
to college, West Virginia
West
State.
Virginia State. Mhm.
You're right, and finish. Now I stayed because I'd gotten a job with, well, I was working various jobs until I got a job with the Bell system. And when I got a job with the Bell system, then I went back to college and finished, and I went to Rutgers. One of the good things about that
Okay.
was the fact that I had the cousin that I stayed with in Jersey City. He was always pushing me, well, when are you going to go back to school? When do you go back to school? And at this point, Braxton had graduated and had gotten married and was living here in Newark too. And he also was doing the same thing. When are you going to go back? So I guess it's good to have friends who have your best interests at heart. During the same time, it's when I met your mother, and that happened. That was on a blind date. A friend of mine who lived in the same building, he was dating this young lady who was a nurse, and he was telling her that he felt that I would have been a good fit for Anita. So when we actually met, I was very impressed. I was very impressed by her statue. I was very impressed by, the way her hair was. I mean, everything was in place, you know. And I mean, I had been, I was a young fellow, and I was dating around. So, but ironically, it gotten to the point where, and I guess most young men get to the point where they get tired of dating, and they're ready to settle down, although all of them do not get to that point. Mm-hmm. But that's where I was, and we met in the spring of 1970, and in the fall of 1971, we were married, because I had proposed to her in March of 71, which was her birthday. Okay. And so that's how, we got here. So, there's a lot of different turns that I could have taken, but thanks to God, I was able to come this route, meet your mother, and have you and your brother.
So what I hear in the story, a couple of things. I heard, a lot of like adventure, a lot of like fearlessness or courage, I would say, and a lot of like honesty with yourself, knowing, hey, I don't want to stay at Benedict because they don't have the major that I really want to major in. But also, I know the football program was cut too. So some of your funds were cut along with that?
No, actually, they weren't.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. So you just really, but the thing is, from being a leader in your high school and really liking Spanish, that kind of set a course for what you are interested in. Then you get to that college, and there are things there for you, but the things that were not. And then Cleveland, you had enough experiences at this time to say, you know what, that particular place is not for me. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, because grandma was there, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah, so everybody isn't like that. Everybody isn't like, I can separate from family and adventure and go on an adventure. So as I say before, you're a trailblazer because you had certain desires that you wanted to see, a certain vision you wanted to see as well. So the next question, I guess this naturally falls in. And again, we're trying to keep this to set 15 minutes, that's all. Mm-hmm. So what were some of your goals in life and career in life? What were some of them, and did you meet them? I know we talked about Spanish. being a career. You talked about, you got some other stuff.
Yeah. Well, like I said, based upon the high school experience that I had, I really had intentions of going to college, majoring in Spanish and another language, second language, and to become an interpreter in the UN. That's what I really wanted to do. And also because I enjoyed playing football, and I wasn't that bad at it. Now I had in mind that I could possibly go to the NFL, but God had other plans for me. And like I say, I'm glad those other plans panned out, because if I would have went those ways, then I would not have met your mother. So.
Okay. Okay, that was good. Let's see, another question I have for you. Okay, so now I want you to share your journey in fatherhood. Share your journey in fatherhood along with your spiritual journey or your spiritual maturity. Like, how did those two tracks, how did they go? How did they come along? Both of those areas in your life.
Well, after we were married, and I remember the very first time that we found out that your mother was pregnant with your brother Eric. I guess was it the old saying, I was grinning like a Cheshire cat, because you could see all of the teeth that I had, and I was very, very happy. One of the things that I had in my mind at the time was, as I said, I was working in the Bell system, and I was progressing pretty well. But I knew that there were certain levels in the company where you really was a company man, and you couldn't be a true family man like I'd wanted to be. So I had said in my mind that I didn't want to go no further than a certain level. And as some people may say, well, that doesn't make sense. But when it gets to the point where you cannot control where you're going to be, it doesn't make sense when you have a family. I wanted to have a job or a career where I could be there on the weekends, because with my children, having extracurricular activities, I thought it was something that a parent should be there to encourage them, and give them as many opportunities as they can. And then being that Eric was a young boy, and then later on in life, quite a long time, because you came along, because it had gotten to the point where your mother and I were thinking about adopting, because I think it was about 7 or 8 years span. And when we really got to the point where we were really very serious about it, lo and behold, here you come. And again, there was that happy smile on my face, because I said, well, I've got a son and I've got a daughter, and life is good. So, but from a parent's perspective, that's what I wanted. I wanted to have a position where we were able to give you guys what you needed, and be there in order to enjoy it and not just hear about it.
Okay, so I hear being present is really a main focus for you. You really wanted to be a dad, you really wanted to be a husband, but a present one, and the best family man that you could possibly be.
Right.
So my question, I'm going to go back to the original question, and I'm going to actually throw something else in. So I want you to talk about your spiritual maturity from marriage or till you had your children. And the other thing is, could it be that one of your goals to be a family man was that derived from the fact that you did not have your birth father from when you were younger? Like, how much did that play a role in your desire to be a true family man, as you said?
Yeah. Now, you know, all my life, and I guess even to the day, I felt that that had no impact on me. Now, subconsciously, it may have. However, the family that I was born into, I was raised by my grandparents, my grandmother and my grandfather, and I say, and my mother was working and support, helping to support them financially. So, and then I had uncles and aunts, and I tell anybody that I was raised with so much love that there was no room for anything else. You know, I still to this day do not know any of my birth father's family, but you know, I don't feel like I've lost out on anything because of the love that I grew up with. You know, so from that
So
point
did
of
that
view,
play a role in you want to be a true family man? And also how did you develop spiritually? Like, you went to church when you were younger.
mhm,
You went to church and whatever denomination, Baptist, but
mhm.
going to church, being a church boy when you were younger, and then being a kingdom man, a man of God, that's completely two different things. So
Oh
um,
yeah, yeah.
how do you see your
Well,
development?
I would say it's the foundation. And like I was going to church when I was younger because my family was going to church, and that was just a tradition. However, when as I grew older, I would say in our teenage years, I broke away from the church that the family went to and went to another one, and that was because there was a younger pastor there, and he wanted to start a men's choir, a boys choir, a men's choir, and which he did. And we used to travel, sing, and even before then, before they did that, some friends and I, we had like a quartet, and we would go around to different churches in West Virginia and sing. So, you know, the foundation upon which it was built, and then I guess with the friends and that I have and the younger pastor, you know, that came into the church, that's where all of that came. So that wasn't, I would say, it wasn't the fact that we went to church because we were studying the word. It was because we were following our friends and doing what we like to do. However, after I got married and we were going, now that was when I was Baptist church, which is what I was born and raised in. When I was married, when we were married, we went to my wife, she went to Episcopalian church. And when I first started going there, I couldn't quite get used to it because I'm used to the gospel songs, and the songs that they had there weren't quite to that level. And but I went there anyway, and you know, but it got to a point where there was so much going on in the church afterwards that got to be so political that, and then it's when I really felt that I really wasn't being fed the word. So that started to real creep in my foundation. I guess so it was inside of me, but I just didn't realize it until I stopped getting it, you know. And then we had stopped going to church for a while. And again, within me, it just felt like you're missing something. Something is missing. And so during this time, uh, your mother was going visiting different churches, and we ended up, she ended up going to this last church where we're in now, First Baptist, and she was impressed with the minister's preaching. But when I went there and we actually joined the church and began to learn about and congregate with the people who were there, the people were just so loving, it just drew you to it. It drew you to it. So it was really what I would say a Christian atmosphere of real love. So,
Okay.
but also during the period that when we had stopped going, again, we had started to go to Bible study.
Yeah.
And it was really intensive. Pardon?
Was this at the same place or was this at VOD?
No, this was on Central Avenue.
Yep, another place.
Yeah, another place. And their Bible, they were organized. I mean, the Bible study was maybe, I'm thinking it was maybe an hour, hour and a half, but when they started on time and they left on time, but you got, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the notebooks that I've got of the notes that were taken there. I mean, it's more than one. And it was really, really impressive. And I really learned a whole lot. And so now, that's something that maybe could have changed me because, I've always felt that I've been a nice person. That's just the way I was born. And that's because I was raised by a nice family full of love. But you can be nice and be full of love, but not understand God and his reasoning for you being. So, but that's where once I grew a lot, maybe that's where it was. And maybe I didn't see it, but maybe others from the outside could see it. So that's where that was.
Okay, so basically, as I asked one of the last two questions, I hear that you grew in the knowledge of God so that you could apply it.
Right.
Like, yeah. And I would almost imagine that you grew to understand why reading and meditating on the word is important. I could, because you were doing that, I suppose. And I could see where fasting and praying, like you would understand that can't be replaced, fasting and praying. And that would change the core of somebody for the better. No matter how nice someone is or thinks they are, like we all go through things, and how we handle it determines, our relationship with God, not like going to church. So I definitely could see, I think one of the gifts is that I could see, to me as a child of yours, is to see your growth and to see Mom's growth as well as a human being, as an adult. Like to see you guys grow as adults, not just in age, but in spiritual maturity was like, that's like forever a gift, that because I was cognizant and aware, and I could see how you were, and I could see how you are, and is mind blowing. So I guess that brings me to the next question is, so in our previous discussions we've had, we know that, there were lots of things between us that wasn't so nice, that wasn't so loving, and it was a lot of conflict. And so for our formerly soured relationships, I want to ask, how do you think that, I'm trying to read my question here, but I'll freestyle. Do you think that life circumstances exaggerated the conflict between us? When did you notice that we were like oil and water at one point? Was it middle school for me? When did you notice?
It could have been, I don't know, there was, and I think, I don't know if I'm able to really answer that, because in hindsight, when I think about some of the things that had happened to me, and I didn't realize that there was so much stress on me that I really wasn't being the true self that I wanted to be, or the one person that I was raised up as. And one of the things was when your mother was diagnosed with cancer, okay, And around the time also, around all of this was happening around the same time, or it happened, was when I was downsized from the job at AT&T at the point, even though I was blessed in the sense that I was able to get a full pension, but within myself, I wasn't ready to retire, you know. And then on top of that, in between, and I think all of that started when Eric started to go into college. Not part of it started because the downsizing threats from AT&T and the Bell system had started, and they loomed for so many years. It wasn't just, all right, you hear it and then it's done. It just kept looming. And so people, you know, were afraid of losing their jobs and things like that. And then they would get rid of some people, and then you had to do more work. So the morale was going down. So all of that was planned on, you know, and then, like I say, the desire or concerns for paying for college for you guys. All of that was happening at the same time. And even though it was happening at the same time, it really didn't dawn on me until later on in life that all of this was looming, and that could possibly have contributed to my behavior at the time. Because I was getting to feel like I wasn't the type of man, being the man that I needed to be to take care of a family. And then the thought of possibly losing my spouse, you know, so it just was so much. And like I say, at the time, it wasn't crystal clear. And until later on, when you step back and God has led you through it, you can see what was happening or what had happened.
Also, I think grandma started to live with us.
Yeah.
Also, so you had the responsibility also of helping to take care of grandma, you know, as well. That, you know, mom's mom. So that is a lot. And yeah. So I mean, through our conversation and discussion, we both realized all these things happen at the same time. Eric, you know, not to tell his business, but you know, he was having a good time down in Maryland. So,
yes.
So you know, I think you were kind of like, but this is not the part of the plan. What are you doing? So as an adult, I can see all of that stress, and I am really curious to know where your spiritual growth was at this time. Were you still at the Trinity Episcopalian Church, or were you guys not going at all? Where were you in this time?
In that time, let me trying to see the time frame. We actually went to First Baptist. I think we actually joined in 2000. Actually, we got the right-handed fellowship in January of 2000. And at that same time, during that first part of the year, that winter, is when your mother had her operation. Now, as far as the Bible study, that happened after that.
Okay, so what you're
because
saying,
I think Mom, go ahead.
I'm listening, because 2000 is the year. And with Eric in college, that was like 92 through 90. You know, he was doing things for a while. So, but from like 92-ish was when things were starting. And then 2000 is when y'all made a decision to go get fed somewhere. But from 92 to 2000, where were you then? Or maybe you guys were just trying to fend for yourself?
Well, like, where were we with the church?
Yeah.
Like I said, we had just, it had gotten to the point, like I said, right before then is when I had said to myself that, you know, we weren't in church, and I said, we have to get back into it. And it's not like that I was dictating to your mother, because she was out looking at different churches, going to different churches. But so I guess the realization was within both of us that something was missing. And that was the only thing that was missing. So like I say, in 2000, in January, we had joined First Baptist. I think we had been going there maybe a month or so. And then we actually joined the church. And then sometime after that, doing, and it could have been within later that year and the next couple of years, was when we started to go into the Bible study at the other church.
Okay, so things started picking up for you guys in terms of having some direction, some deeper foundation. I'm telling you, during when you guys started going to the Bible study, in addition to you went to your church on Sunday, but then you went somewhere else to get fed even deeper. Like that's when I saw like this huge pivot in the best way. But from what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, so from 92 to 2000, it was just some really rough years. 92 to 2002, let's just say, because that was the beginning of me going to college, that was 99. Okay, so it really does make sense that we could take a step back and kind of like talk about it. And I'll say that I know that when I started to develop my relationship with God, not just going to church, like when I started to do that, I started to understand there were things that I had to apply and do instead of feeling a way about whatever. Like I remember like everybody knows the 1 Corinthians 13, all about love, but I had been growing in such a way where I realized it's not just to be a hearer of the word, but to really do it. So it dawned on me to actually live out 1 Corinthians 13. And I know specifically when our relationship turned is, I don't even know what year it was, but so I started going, this is 2020. So 2011, I started going to where I go. And I don't know, a couple years in is when I just was like, I had to make some decisions in my life and I had to cut some things out. And I just to be obedient to what God was telling me to do. But in doing that, I remember once I obeyed and cut some things out, people, places, and things, I remember like the word just really taking root in me like never before, ever. And so once I started to live out 1 Corinthians 13, specifically with you, no matter what goes down, no matter what you say, no matter how we may come to blows, I'm just going to love, no record of wrong. I'm just going to be kind. And it wasn't like a check, I did this. It was like, okay, keep doing it. It was like a perpetual action plan. I remember when I started doing that, and then of course we had our tiffs, but I remember you came to me and you said, well, you haven't really been around. What's that about? And then I remember, okay, Lord, we can have the conversation now. Like the all out conversation. Cause I remember realizing that it was going over your head what the problem was. And so not to get into too deep, but once you asked that question, once you were aware and you had the courage to ask that question, then, cause I don't know how I was, like, let's be honest, I probably was not the most, not the best child in some of my conversations might have been pretty snappy. I know Eric said that when I was younger that I was definitely always very strong-willed.
Yes, you were from the time you were born. I always say that when you were born, you came out and you took over the household, but everybody else was basically quiet and you was the loudest thing around.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, that's true. But I figure I wasn't the only loud one. Or was I loud or was I just bursting with personality?
I would say bursting with personality, because even I remember your baby picture, and I was astonished at that. Most people, when they have their baby picture, their eyes are closed. But when you had yours, your eyes were open.
Yeah. So I've apologized before, but I thank you. I thank the Lord that you was working with your daughter, and you probably didn't understand why I would come out and say certain things or whatever, like, because like you said, you were in the middle of a storm and it wasn't just like a year. This thing from like 92 to like past the 2000s. So possibly you could have got used to that feeling. And it was really the grace of God. It was really his spirit, from you going and having a relationship with God and his teachings and Jesus' teachings, and for you to start to live it and believe it and have the faith to grow more and more, and then be somewhere else. You know, I'm in Maryland, then I'm in DC. I mean, Maryland, I'm in the Bronx, then I come back to Jersey, and then I start to settle myself. And then that's when I started to grow internally. And I think that both of us being different places, but then growing in God in our respective places, it brought us together with the understanding, with, like, you know, some peace and love and all that, and forgiveness. Again, back to I said, the main thing was forgiveness, because it wasn't just, oh, you said things that I was like, that was really disrespectful. I know in college I started to grow really outspoken, and I'm pretty sure I said some things that were really disrespectful. And that's not the brightest part of my life. So I apologize again.
Well, thank you. I accept your apology. And I apologize for anything that I did that upset you.
Thank you.
Truly was not my intentions.
You know, and I get that now. But when I was younger, I didn't get it, but I get it now.
Okay.
So I'm grateful that we can have the conversation. Now, the last question I have has to do with, I don't know, maybe it was 5 years ago, 4 years ago. I walked into the living room, the coffee table. There was this book called The Power of Positive Confrontation. And I said, who book that belonged to? And I just kind of knew it wasn't Mom. And you were like, oh, that's my book. And I was just like, oh, I was really, really excited and really impressed, because I feel like that was a title of a book that I just knew that was going to be like, you know, earth shattering and helping you further along. And I said, wow, like, God must really be talking to you, because again, we talked about this before. You didn't know exactly what the issue was. And I don't know, did Mom share, or was that just something you wanted to grow in, positive confrontation?
Say that again. Was that something that I want?
How did you say, oh, that book right there, I need to see that?
Okay. Well, I guess it was a culmination of, believe it or not, it started with the fact that I'm an introvert. And I'm very, very quiet. And I say, I guess that started, I always joke and tell people, I said, when my grandmother raised me, she used to run her mouth a mile a minute, and all I could do was just listen. But it got to the point when you're dealing in corporations and with different organizations and different clubs, and you're dealing with people, and you run across certain people who say things that are not quite right. You want to respond, but you don't want to do it not in a Christian way. So therefore, when I ran across this, the power of positive confrontation, I felt like that would have been something that would have helped me.
I mean, but see, that is great, but that's not just a read. For somebody to say, hey, this would help me, I have this area of deficit, which we all have different areas of like, you know, deficits, but to say, I need this book, this will help me, that takes a grown, mature individual. Forget the age, it just takes a mature person. So when I saw that book, I mean, I knew that book wasn't going to be on a coffee table like 20 years ago, but to see that book, I was like, wow. So I don't know, in general, just to see, you know, your dad grow as a person and just to see your dad grow spiritually, it's like the best gift ever. Like, and to know that gift came from your relationship with Christ, it was like there's no spelling anybody could do but a change behavior. To see somebody's behavior grow and change for the better, it's just like, yo, that's a billboard right there. So, yeah.
Okay. Just another book that I thought was very, and this is going way back, was God is My CEO.
Oh yeah.
And I think I had gotten that. I know it was after I had we had joined First Baptist, and I read that, and I thought that was good. As a matter of fact, I had spoken with the pastor about it, you know. But I thought that was a good one. You know, when you look at what it is that God is looking for and what it is that man is looking for, and you have to decipher, well, where am I at? Am I doing it the right way, or am I looking at the wrong way things? So,
that's a question.
Yeah.
That's good. Self-reflection. So it looks like we actually talked for an hour. I did not plan for it to be that long. But either way, it was still a short version. Just a couple questions I had, and we talked about. So is there anything else that you want to share? Because again, remember, Restore Talks helps restore individuals, families, and communities, and we're to give tools and strategies. So if you're talking to a dad, maybe who has a poor relationship with their child, whether they're in the house or whether they're out the house, the relationship is not so great at all, what would you say to that dad? What would you say to that child? Speak to them.
I don't know if I could give them, the only thing I could say is to be patient and understanding, and really try to understand where the person is coming from. Because if you think about it, if you look within yourself and you go way back, you probably did some of the same things that your parents or grandparents didn't like and thought, well, there's something wrong with, you know, something's not right. So you just have to go back from whence you come and think about it, and just try to be patient and understanding, and above all, be loving.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, maybe we'll do another one and you ask me questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure those will be very thorough questions. But yes, thank you so much. So thank you everybody who's been watching the whole entire session today. And you know, if you have any ideas about who I should interview next, I mean, I'm gonna always have some ideas, but if you have an idea of who you want to see or what you would like to see, again, with the mind that helps you have conversations to help build a person, families, and communities, drop it in the comments below. I will definitely check it out. And thank you for watching. Thank you, Dad, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right. All right, bye-bye.
Bye now.